Okay, guys, if you're just joining us, we have some special guests on today. And when I say special, that's not just being that's not conjecture. We have some specialists as it relates to luxury real estate. That's out of my expertise. So I get to be a reporter in this particular session. I'll start off by asking questions, panel style. We're going to hear from Danielle O'Quinn. Danielle is only 3 years new to the business, but she's the person that everybody goes to for luxury. So Danielle, that's an awesome picture you got there too, by the way. Super high end.
Yeah.
All your branding is awesome. So she's going to talk about that a little bit. We also have Chad Corbett. All you guys know Chad. His background in luxury real estate, dealing with wealthy clients, is in resort areas, very high-end resort areas, snowshoe. So you have mountain properties, and he also worked with clients in Maui with resort style real estate. And then we have Tony Baroni, who's also a top producer and has got a mega team. He'll be joining us a little bit later on, hopefully, but that was kind of 50-50. So we'll see if he's able to join us. But the format today is going to be me asking questions and panel style related to process, best practices, branding, specifically as it relates to luxury, which is huge. And then hopefully we're all able to walk away with some really tactical takeaways from this if you want to ultimately make more money and do less work. I think that's what it comes down to. So on that note, by the way, if you have any questions, use the raise hand icon by your chat control box there, and then Chad will call on you on the second half of this. So we always try to target an hour, no more than an hour, but we'll take as long as we need if you have more questions. But the Q&A session will start with Danielle, and then we'll bounce around between Danielle, Chad, and Tony when he comes on.
He made it. Tony's here.
Okay. Hey, Tony, how you doing, bud? Can you hear us okay?
He was here.
Okay. While he's getting his mic set up and everything. We'll bounce around between those three panelists, and then everyone on the call will have a chance to ask questions. If you think of a question, just throw it in early. But once we get about halfway through this 1 hour, then we'll switch over to discussion, and then you guys will have a chance to jump in and ask questions. And if there's a question that comes up during this time, you want to piggyback on some info that our panelists are sharing, go ahead and throw that in the chat window, and we'll be sure to surface your questions, okay? So with that, let's start with Danielle. Let's talk, how did you, you're 3 years fresh into this business. When did you transition to luxury, and how did that look?
So when I got into the business, it was probably my third or fourth deal, was my first deal that was at $1 million price point. And I started noticing the difference between the first time home buyer clients and then the luxury clientele. And I really just felt more comfortable. I felt like my background in sales, marketing, it was more in tune with the luxury market, as well as the paychecks looked better in the luxury market, if we're all going to be completely transparent. So from there, I really started just honing in on building my business around that luxury price point. Especially when you're new in the business, they're really going to teach you to take on as many deals at any price point that you can, which is good to learn, all different markets, all different buyers, all different, seller types. But I really specifically focused on Windermere, and that's where my kids go to school. And so I wanted to focus specifically on one market. And I think that honing in on knowing who the agents were, who the buyers were, who my sellers were, what they were looking for, and really, making myself an expert in that set me apart from all the other agents. I really don't think that in this market, you can be an expert in everything. There's way too many communities. We have way too many suburb cities. And if you are an expert in something, I always say niches get riches. And that's kind of my, saying that I've stood to, and being able to engross myself into luxury. And it was by doing the background work of learning every community, learning who the agents were in it, learning what the buyers were looking for, who they really were, where they hang out, where their kids go to school. and doing all the things that you don't think about doing at first in real estate. You're thinking about, selling the houses, learning the contracts, the buyers and the lenders and what are the rates. But I think really trying to identify that actual perfect buyer and the perfect seller within what you're wanting to buy and sell at in those markets, it'll really help level you up on a playing field, especially when you don't have a tenure like I don't, with 20 plus years in this industry.
Right. So yeah, that's an interesting perspective because you're coming out of the gate brand new. You don't have that referral base like a lot of more experienced agents do. And it's not like you're old like me either. So it's not like you're hanging out with a bunch of people who and you have friends, I'm sure, that are wealthy, but it's typically you see mature agents, older agents that are working the luxury space. You usually don't see people who win was it the 30 under 30 or the 35 under 35? I can't remember which one it was.
I did the 35 under 35. Yeah.
The 35 under 35. Yeah. So that's interesting dynamic too. So with that, Tony, let me bounce over to Tony. Did you get your mic set up?
Yes.
Can you hear us? Awesome, man. Glad you could join us, man. Tony's super busy. Tony, can you tell us a little bit about your origin story? Especially as it relates to working higher end properties. And by the way, to start us off here, what was your volume last year, your team's volume?
About 120 million.
120 million. How long you been in real estate?
Since 2005, so 19 years.
Awesome, man. So tell us about the transition to you focusing on luxury. And you actually cover a lot, but as it relates to luxury, when did that start getting your attention?
I mean, for me, I think as everyone would say, I'd start in luxury if that was how it worked. But generally, I think, we're all working towards helping as many people as we can at the beginning. So that's what I focused on in 2005 through, call it 2013. And now after 19 years, I do have those clients that have, they bought with me originally, and we've bought and sold, several times now, and they're in the luxury space. And the coolest part about real estate is just the amount of wealth it creates from people just simply putting a roof over their head, right? So that's been pretty cool to watch as a realtor and as a real estate team. So yeah, I think for, the more people you meet, the rooms you decide to go into, the hobbies you decide to pursue will impact how many people you meet that could be in the luxury space, right? So at the end of the day, I think it can be very strategic. I would never go out and do something I don't want to do. Like, for example, golf would probably be a good way to meet luxury clients, right? But I'm not a golfer, so that doesn't really work for me, right? Whereas something else that you really love to do, go out and do it. The formula really is simple. Meet as many people as you can while doing stuff you love to do. And I think if you do that, maybe that looks like joining a country club, right? And maybe you don't golf, but you are very involved with that country club, for example. And little things like that, that's really where I became a little more strategic on who I want to meet. And I posted this today on social media, but I was having a conversation last week with a really good friend of mine. And he's like, we were talking about a group that we were in, and he joined the group. And he said, yeah, when you guys first kind of marketed what you were doing, he's like, who do I need to become to be in this room? Like to be invited into this group, right? And I think that's really what luxury is about. Who do you need to become to work with luxury clients, right? And it's not rocket science, right? They're all looking for the same type of things, but how you carry yourself, the results that you can provide, all of those type of things matter.
That's interesting. Two thoughts come to mind as you were talking. Number one, to piggyback on what you just said, everybody wants to focus on what to do as opposed to who to be that will create the outcomes, right? Or attract those outcomes and those types of clients. That's a really interesting point. And then like most newer agents, it's interesting, we have this dynamic between you and Danielle. Danielle purposely and deliberately went after the luxury market, where you kind of evolved into the luxury market as your clients built equity over time. So I think I heard somewhere that the first time home buyer is going to have a down payment typically around 3 to 5%. But then subsequent purchases thereafter, your second, third, fourth, and subsequent house purchases, because you're building equity along the way and you're using equity as down payments on the next purchase, the down payment on average is 19%. So you're growing with your clients. You're growing with your clients' equity, and that translates to higher price points over time. That's really interesting.
I would say, I would just add to, based on our strategy, is getting 5-star reviews, right? And then people find you online. So I think that formula works for every type of clientele, not just luxury.
Yeah, and we're going to come back to that as a practical matter, because it's one thing to have conjecture and rhetoric about having good reviews. It's another thing to have a review culture and mechanisms in place to extract and publish those good reviews. And also, how do you play in defense to block and tackle bad ones before they make it permanently online, right? We can talk about that too. I'm glad you brought that up. Thanks for that, Tony. Let's bounce over to Chad. Everybody knows Chad as one of the facilitators for Market Makers. But what you didn't know about Chad is that he cut his teeth serving super high-end clients in the resort type properties in Maui and in mountain resort areas. So Chad, can you talk about your origin story as it relates to luxury?
Yeah. So my origin story starts with failure. I decided to leave the FBI, and the first thing I was like, I'll go into real estate. I had friends that were making good money at Snowshoe Mountain Ski Resort here in West Virginia. And I passed the real estate test with what I believe to be 100 and had a big head. I'm like, I got this. I had no business experience, all law enforcement. And
can I pause you there for a second?
Yeah.
Chad, Tony, do you see any correlation between people who pass the first time on their real estate exams and score well on tests versus people who make money in real estate? Or is there inverse correlation?
Well, I was supremely confident because I was like, oh, I got this. What I learned in school is all I need. And the company that was interviewing me, I went through 3 stages of interviews, and they're like, sorry, dude, you're a cop. You can't sell anything. So I came to the bottom of the mountain here, where we have a median price point of maybe $80,000. And I sold 24. I closed 24 deals in 4 months. I was 24 years old. And all of a sudden I get a phone call of, hey, the guy we hired for your position hasn't sold anything. We hear you've had 24 closings. So boom, I was in the luxury market. So I went to work in early 2006 at Snowshoe Mountain Ski Resort, led that team until I saw the writing on the walls in 2007. And then I went to the Smoky Mountain market because I knew something was happening. I didn't know what I'd do about finance now, but I went to that market because it strengthens in a recession, and it had 12 million annual visitors. And I liked working in the second home luxury market. So I launched a project there. 2008 happened. The whole world changed. And I ended up transitioning my role from just sales, into handling closing coordination for almost $1 billion worth of luxury real estate, because banks pulled all condo products and jumbo loans, and like the lending, like some of you probably remember the liquidity crisis. So my job then became go raise money from banks so I could close my own deals. So I just by necessity became a capital raiser. And throughout we would, even with banks as big as Wells Fargo, we would negotiate $100 million tranches to get $100 million closed out. And then we would go back and try to get more. So that led me to getting multiple licenses. At this point, I had West Virginia, Tennessee, then I went to Washington, and then eventually moved to Maui, where we had a big project. And what fell out from those projects that we couldn't close, people that just were no longer lendable after the financial crisis, we resold that inventory. So I've been licensed in 4 different states, in mountain and beach markets, all whole ownership, no timeshare, anything like that. But working with typically second home purchasers. The great part about that is oftentimes they come back and purchase more than one. As far as what my tricks were, like what I found is in that particular market, and I don't think it's the same even in residential, but I was selling a lifestyle. I wasn't selling real estate, and I never used scripts or sales language, like none of that stuff. I just embodied the community I was in. So at Snowshoe, my number one prospecting method was snowboarding, because I got a captive audience on a ski lift. Every 2 or 3 minutes, I met a new person. And I would literally just go in, make my calls, clear my email, hit the slopes, and I got paid to snowboard. And eventually people would, like, when I knew, like when I was most proud of myself is when a homeowner looked at me and said, Chad, it's Sunday, we have to go home. Which one should we buy? And I never had to sell. I never had to close. So I did it through photography. Like I would take photos each week of the beautiful places I lived, send it to my database, and just lifestyle. Never talked about real estate. I really just focused on lifestyle and letting myself be the mirror that they could see themselves in. And they sold themselves. So that was really my secret. Was coming into it, I was very heavy on logic. There were 22 HOAs in this resort, 2,200 units, and every HOA had different rules, different, fees. So I learned all the logic stuff. To Danielle's point, like I really got to know my market. I knew every HOA manager. I showed up at the HOA meetings, but I don't believe like that was helpful, because once I did connect with someone, like I had the answers to everything. So I had a lot of credibility. But connecting with the clients, finding the people who would purchase from me, it was mainly just embodying the community that I was in and being an example of what they have only been able to have 2 weeks a year. They saw me have 52 weeks a year, and they wanted that. And that's what I was selling. So
Interesting. Appreciate you sharing. Let's talk about the difference in mindset. Obviously, there are some common denominators that would apply to serving somebody, like you said, Chad, the houses at the bottom of the mountain versus the ones on the slopes. What would you say, Danielle, and then Tony, same question for you, and then Chad, if you could follow up. But what is, Danielle, the difference between the mindset of someone who's selling a $5 million property versus what you see someone selling a $500,000 house?
I mean, I think it's just another zero, to be honest. It's another zero on the dollar sign, but the difference is in the type of buyer and the type of seller that you're working with at those price points. Understanding the lifestyle that they have, that they're used to, the type of customer service that they're going to be expected of, the type of luxuries and amenities that should come with these types of properties. And you being the representative of them and being the expert and knowing, all of the factors that should go into it. So I think the biggest difference in a $500,000 house and a $5 million house is, going to be the location, the quality of the house, the size, amenities, like I said, that are provided with it. If it's lakefront, golf front, guard gated, school districts, all those sorts of things. They're buying not only just the house, they're buying where they're buying it. They're buying the location, usually 95% of the time is what it is. There's two things you can't change in real estate. And I tell this over and over again to my clients. It's your lot size and your location. So everything else is changeable. And so understanding that at a $5 million price point, you need to be the expert in letting them know that. And, a $500,000 house for most people, it sometimes can be their end all, in this market, or a lot of the time it's a stepping stone house. So, and sometimes a $5 million one is going to be a forever home, or, it could be an investment property. So understanding realistically, I think the sellers and buyers at the different price points and the different things that they're going to be needing out of these homes is really the biggest difference between them. I mean, I have to walk into a $500,000 listing appointment the same that I'm going to walk into a $5 million, and I treat them no different. I just understand that at a $500,000 price point, we may have higher inventory for buyers to be choosing from. There are a lot of things that you have to understand about these communities and properties versus at a $5 million, what are buyers expecting us to have to carry this type of price tag? So that's how I would kind of spew that between the two different price points.
Appreciate that. Tony, is there a difference in mindset?
Really, but what they both said, I mean, at the end of the day, it's lifestyle. And I mean, I'll give you an example. I just had a client, they bought a $5.6 million property from me about a year and a half ago. And they called me back and said, hey, we want to sell. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, tell me about that. Cause I always think, did I miss something? And they're like, Tony, it's just like you said, the lifestyle here isn't just not what we're looking for. There's no kids in the neighborhood. Everyone kind of does everything to themselves. They have a lot of famous celebrities in their subdivision, and they're just like, we're looking for like just more of a family place, and where our kids are going to be meeting other kids, and it's not quite as glamorous, right? And ultimately they ended up moving to the suburbs, and it's just a better fit for them. But they had to self-discover that. But to me, it's always about the lifestyle, and what kind of lifestyle, what does that look like, and what's your evenings look like, and what are you trying to do, is really where to start. I think that has a lot to do with location too, on top of that. But yeah, really what they said.
Chad, do you have anything to add to that?
I'll echo that. I mean, what I find on when somebody's purchasing one of these properties, they're looking pretty far into the future. They're buying a vision, their personal family vision. When they're selling it, they're usually doing the same thing. It's very, very seldom that I have a motivated seller that was motivated financially. Even if they took a loss, they said, I'm cashing this out to go buy on this mountain, or I'm leaving Maui because I got 3 places in Cabo for the same price. And it was just a forward-looking vision. Where working in more conventional transactions, people are looking 30 days at a time. When's my first mortgage payment due? Or when can we expect to get this closed? We have to buy another house. And their urgency was very different. It was lifestyle urgency set on a long-term vision, usually strongly tied to their whole family.
Interesting. So
I think it's worth talking about agent mindset too, if we want to go around that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, Danielle, what is the difference psychologically, or the way somebody presents himself with luxury clients, who's successful with luxury clients, versus somebody who can't break that barrier? What do you notice as somebody who's in that space?
I would say the biggest thing is that you need to be an expert in the luxury market. So if you come in with a track record and you've only sold $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 houses for the last 5-6 years, somebody who's listing their $5 million property is not going to be as likely to trust you. And it's not because maybe you didn't have great 5-star reviews or anything of that magnitude, but it's more so the fact of they want somebody who's an expert in their market share, which you have to do the grind to get those types of clientele. My first $1 million deal, we see a lot more $1 million homes in the Orlando market share right now. So the $1 million price point is actually becoming what it was, a couple of years back, what 800,000 was.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing a lot more agents who are having $1 million, price point sales, on their sales records now. But what I would say is that you have to have a substantial amount of luxury sales behind your belt in order to have those types of conversations with sellers for them to be able to trust you. And I don't think you need to have the tenure in it. I think the reason why I had such early success, it was my my third, fourth month that I had my first $1 million deal. I turned around a couple of months later and I did a $2 million, and then a couple of months later did a $3 million deal. So, and I never once got questioned by my buyers at that point how long I had been working in real estate, because I knew the market like the back of my hand, because I engulfed into the knowledge of it and becoming the expert, and not letting the years of experience, weigh on me. And so now I have the belt under me already with all of those sales and that track record. But if you're new and you're wanting to get into it, if you go in and you're just as knowledgeable as the person who has 20 years experience, you're going to have a lot more footing to be able to hold your ground in a listing interview with an agent who has that 50, 60, $100 million sales, track record. But here, if you are a new agent, the market just as well as they are. You have good marketing. You have those contacts and connections that they're looking for of those type of buyers. You can present yourself in a different light. So, and I had to obviously find new ways to navigate myself into the luxury market sector, because it is like an old boys club. There, we have a handful of luxury agents in Orlando, Windermere, Winter Park, who run those markets. And in order to be somebody new and young without that years of experience, I had to find ways to make myself different. But the first thing and advice I always give agents is, if you want to become a luxury agent, you have to know the luxury market.
And when you're saying you have to know it, that's memorizing and learning like history, sales history, amenities, differentiating, knowing values.
Yeah, I mean, I have hot sheets. I keep track. I know the second anytime new properties come on in Windermere, if there's a home, I know about those communities. So I've looked into all the different communities. So I know Keens Point, know your streets, know what sectors of these divisions, know the agents who sell in there. They knew me, all the agents who sell in there, the most popular agents in Keens Point and Islesworth and Reserve Lake Butler Sound. I know all of the agents specifically because I used to reach out to them and ask for off-market properties or pocket listings, and I built repertoire and reputation. And so I think that's also that can give you that connections piece when you're having that conversation with seller, is that you are interlinked with all of these other agents and with buyers, that you can get access to pocket listings and off-market luxury properties within this market sector because you're well diverse and connected in it.
That's great.
Danielle, would you agree that decorators, nannies, high-end lawn care companies, like that's just as important in what I've found, like bringing the whole team, like vetting the best of the best in the community and pointing them directly to them. I found that to be really valuable when you can say, hey, you guys move in, we can do a whole new facade. Like you said, you can't change the lot or the location. But if you like this $3 million house, but you wish it was a lot different, we can get this guy in here to do this work, and I'll vouch for him. Like, I found that to be just as much of being an expert as the market knowledge is the people knowledge in the community.
Yeah, 100%. Having contacts and vendors that work specifically in these market shares and that are reputable. I know the cleaners that work in all the, high-end neighborhoods that work with the celebrities. So when they want somebody they can trust to be in their homes who've worked other similar properties, that I have those contacts for them and those specific vendors. And that takes sometimes the research of what you're not doing and just making the calls to get new buyers and sellers. It's taking, the extra hours and going the extra steps to really build yourself a reputation in that market, not even with clients yet, but with vendors and with other agents in that market share. So you have those trusted relations when it comes to, future deals.
Yeah, that's great. Tony, you're sitting across the table. Obviously, you're selling these properties, but you're sitting across the table from a lot of agents, and you also mentor and develop a lot of agents. What's the difference between mindset, somebody who can be successful in the luxury sector versus somebody who can't?
I think the luxury side, I mean, for example, I'll just tell a quick story because I just helped an NFL player buy a home, and it was really buying it for his mom and grandma. It's really cool to be a part of that whole experience. But, I can tell you, like, the amount of questions that come in. One thing I say, in case it helps anyone here, is I want to be your Google from now on. Anything you need, I want you to just get with me. If you're thinking about a plumber or you're thinking about this, whatever you need, I want you to contact me, run it by me, and I'll be glad to point you in the right direction. So they have taken that quite literally. Since we closed about a month ago, they text me nonstop on a million things, right? Which is great because I'm building that relationship, and they're that happy. They may stay at like my beach house this summer, like stuff like that. It's just goes much deeper. And as Chad said, the vendors, I mean, it's just so powerful. And I'm always shocked by how some agents have no relationships with any vendors. And I'm thinking, like, it's kind of, I never really thought it wasn't part of our job, right? I always just thought that comes with the territory. We need to have a great network of people set up in order to give them what they want and make the experience as easy as possible. And this beach home that I bought, I got all the vendors from them, and it saved me so much time and effort, right? When they were able to do that for me and pass those people on to me, so I don't have to like try to figure it all out myself.
Yeah, interesting. Chad, anything to add to the difference that you notice in people who are successfully working luxury properties versus ones who can't break that mold?
The biggest thing for me, like the biggest common denominator I've seen, is having a bad relationship with money usually works you down the price scale when working with clients. Like the more healthy your relationship around wealth is, the less intimidated you feel and the easier you actually connect with those people. And if you find if that cause something to happen inside of you, it probably means you have a bad relationship with money. And what I would recommend is get around people that have, and when I say high net worth, I mean over $10 million personal net worth. It's different. It's a different class of people, but if you've never associated with people like that, they're not what you think. They're not what our society has taught us they are for the most part. Now, there are always outliers, and there are some extreme assholes that let money go to their head. It's just like whiskey. But in my experience and working with literally thousands of individuals, high net worth, not more than 90% of them are really good, wholesome, modest people. And you'll be able to spot the other ones really quickly, and don't let them intimidate you. But if you're intimidated before you meet with a client because of their status or their net worth, then you got some work to do on yourself around mindset. And I had to struggle through this myself. I grew up on a farm here near the biggest ski resort on the Eastern Seaboard. And I, did blue collar. I owned fencing companies. Like, I made good money, but I didn't have that lifestyle. And what's ironic is they wanted my lifestyle, and I wanted to sell them, at the ski resort. But I had to, probably in the first 3 months, something clicked where I'm like, wait a minute, these are just humans here to have fun. Like, why the hell am I worried about their balance sheet? Like, I'm going to be a millionaire. And when that shift happened, my career became just fun. Where before I was very calculated and I had to be prepared. And I was like, am I dressed nice enough? Like, I need better clothes. And I just dropped all of that. And I mean, literally, like, I was selling high six figures here and that period, which was quite a bit. I mean, like I said, a median price down here was like 80 grand, and I'm selling $600,000-$700,000 stuff on the mountain. And I was in a plaid shirt, a pair of boots, and jeans. It didn't matter. Like, what mattered was who I was and how I connected with them. So as far as mindset, especially if you're on it's buyer's agent or listing agent, like, don't be intimidated by your clients or you won't connect with them. And for those of you that don't know, I went on to build a career in education and real estate. And I've coached agents, thousands of agents across the country, all 50 states, in probate, which is an emotionally sensitive space. What I find fascinating is even top producers in that space hardly ever will go really crack into the attorney business. And it's literally 10 times easier to build your pipeline with attorney referrals in that niche than it is to put letters in the mail and make phone calls and hammer the phones every month. But the same mindset is at play. When people are intimidated by attorneys, they don't go to their office and introduce themselves and build a real connection. So they never actually get that referral pipeline set up. And I find it's the same thing with luxury. Like, if you can get somebody to just step out and realize, hey, I'm a professional here to serve their needs and help them meet their vision. It doesn't matter how much money they have, then you can break past that. But I think that's like, if you don't have a good, healthy mindset around money, you probably won't do well around people who do.
That's interesting. And that's all self-limiting. It's not even real. They're lies.
No, you can fix it in seconds.
So
get yourself around that demographic and realize, holy crap, like, find someone that's got a $10 million net worth in your church and a like a kind of a neutral area, and offer to take them fishing for the day. People probably don't do that for them. And I'll tell you, having built wealth, like, the common things are sometimes the most exciting. Like, if you live in Maui and you're on Kaanapali Beach every day and you're in these big houses and big resorts, like, sometimes it's kind of cool to go canoeing, like, somewhere else, like on the mainland. So do something simple with them that's fun and really connect, and then ask the real questions. Like, what do you think I should do to attract more people like you into my life? Like, even if you're not planning to do business with this person, find a wealthy mindset mentor, do something nice and fun for them, and learn what you can from that.
That's great. Appreciate that. That's the psychology behind it. So we talk psychology. Just to kind of summarize real quick, and we'll close with one more question for each of you. It's knowing your inventory, the high-end inventory, almost down to the street level. It's having the Rolodex of vendors that have that are proven, that can serve those areas and those types of clients and those types of properties, knowing the agents and also the people that are around that part of the business, to also build your reputation and be relevant within that space, among other real estate professionals too. Here's the last question that I'll ask each of you, and we'll start again with Danielle. If you had 5 minutes with me, Danielle, and your income the rest of your life, you're not selling anymore, you're done. You can only make half of what I make for the rest of your life, okay? And you got 5 minutes to spend with me. I'm gonna ask each of you the same question. What are you telling me in that 5 minutes, from tactic to mindset to best practices to, and you will never have another chance to talk to me again, and your income for the rest of your life is dependent on what I make in luxury sales. What are you going to tell me in those 5 minutes?
What do you mean? Like, you're like somebody that I'm trying to like
develop into a luxury agent, and the only income you're ever going to make is what I sell.
So what would I tell you? My advice to you be? Is this
Exactly.
kind of like the question?
Yep.
My advice would be to get your feet where you want to be and become who you want to become. So that would mean that I would want you to, put yourself into the environment, if you want to be a luxury agent, into that luxury mindset and become one of those people of who you want as your clientele. That means kind of, it's a whole synopsis of everything that we've been talking about. You can't sell luxury real estate if you don't understand luxury people. You can't, if you don't understand their lifestyles and you don't understand where they are and everything, their experiences that they enjoy. And so I think that in order to be successful in the luxury market real estate, and for you to be successful in it, you need to put yourself into their shoes, which means, when you, exactly kind of bouncing off what Chad said, you need to, engross yourself into conversations with these ultra luxury buyers and sellers to understand their mindsets and to become part of their, communities. And then that's how you'll earn their trust regardless, because most all business in this market share, I've learned, all my clients are now referrals. I sold the $13 million home a couple months back, and that was a referral from a friend from a contact I knew. And that all came with trust, and so I think that it's because you have to really, though, be who you want to be in this market share. And to be honest, with the whole thing that you talked about with the money, that you also have to, they trust who they see. So when I started selling real estate, I sold my first $1 million to $3 million deals, and I was driving, my Chevy, mom SUV. And then I did trade it in for the Mercedes that's custom wrapped, so people know when I drive up who I am. And I think it shows, because it matters. And so you have to engross yourself in this lifestyle. You have to invest in yourself. And I think that would be the biggest advice that I would give anybody who wants to really become successful in luxury, is to understand it, become it, invest in it. And, I think those are all the things that you're going to have to do.
Appreciate that. Tony, what's your take? Same question.
You ask tough questions, John. So yeah, what I would say, it's really comes down to the 3 R's for me, and that is relationships, reviews, and referrals, right? So at the end of the day, if you're able to, no matter if it's luxury, I don't care what price point, you got to take care of the client, right? You got to deliver a 5-star experience. If you do that, you then become what I call a referable, right? Where they're going to connect you with other people. And then it's all then about how many more people can we continue to meet and do the same thing for, right? So it's really that simple. That's how I built my entire business, through relationships, reviews, and referrals. We do have over 2,800 5-star reviews now, and we have over 3,100 sales. And that has became our value proposition for people. If they're like, Tony, tell me why I should choose you versus someone else, I'll just simply say, I can say whatever about myself, but what I would recommend is you to read what past clients have said about us and me and the team for the last 19 years. And I let that become my value proposition, whether it's a luxury client or whoever, right? And I think if you just take care of people, they're going to take care of you if you set the expectations properly. And what I mean by that is people don't just randomly give you reviews. You got to ask, right? So when I meet people at the very beginning, I'm going to frame it from the perspective of, I want to deliver such a great experience that at the end of this, you are so thrilled that you're compelled to do two things. The first is that you give me a review and give me that feedback on how I did. And would you be willing to do that, John? And they'll say, yeah, sure. And then I'm going to say, and then sometime between today and closing, I would love for you to introduce me to someone else that has real estate needs that I can serve, right? And then at the end, we're doing checkpoints along the way. And then at the very end, we are tallying the score, if you will, right? Are they going to do a review for us? Yes or no? Did they give us a referral? Yes or no, right? And then if not, we're going to see if they will. And then if they didn't give me a referral, I'm just going to give them an extension to do that in the next year. Out of the 7 people they're going to meet on average in the next 12 months, I'm going to have them send me one person, and I'm going to have them connect us with a 3-way text. And guys, that is where it's at. We're looking for all the shiny objects. We're looking for, oh, if I buy this, it's going to change my life. That's all you really need to do, in my opinion, is just take care of people.
That's great. Did you ever get into Michael Mars' 7 Levels of Communication?
Yeah, big fan. Big fan of that book. Yeah, I know Michael. He's a good guy.
That's awesome. And then, I wanted to talk about reviews. Maybe we'll come back. We'll talk reputation management and get more tactical about reviews. But the way you frame it from very go is obviously the best way to get them on the back end, as opposed to trying to blindside somebody with a request. Then that's great. Chad, you have 5 minutes with me.
All right. So for me, I would say, just as your clients are, and set your vision. And this is consistent with what everyone else has said, but go into a market that you're passionate about for the same reasons that your clients will be. So, sorry, can you mute Maggie, please? But anyways, as you choose your market, don't choose it based on money or other, metrics like that. Choose the lifestyle that you want to live in, and then go live that lifestyle. Get to know every broker you can, get to know every vendor you can, and do whatever transaction you can at whatever price point at first, and like serve like you've never served. I mean, assuming you're just getting into this business. And then from there, start referring people to your vendors and start building those relationships. Every time you have a closing, this is something like to what Tony was saying, like I used to, rather than focus on reviews, because that wasn't a huge thing 15, 20 years ago. When I first got started, I tried to make sure I introduced every new homeowner, like every buyer would get introduced to my already existing homeowners. So they could go have drinks, and they could live the lifestyle, kind of try it on for size. So the big, as your network grows, connect your network with itself. Like when you have a prospect, let them hang out with your clients. Say, you should go, you really need to meet them. And I did this in everywhere I've ever been. I was dropped into markets every 2 or 3 years where I became I led the team, and I was one of the top producers in the market within months, because I did just that. So I really integrated it. I chose the community carefully, something that I was passionate about and a lifestyle I wanted to live. I integrated into the brokerage community, the business owner community. And then as soon as I could build relationships with real estate prospects or clients, I made a community out of that. And they all knew each other, and they talked about me. And like when I was in Maui, my phone would ring the second somebody's feet hit the runway. Hey, are you here? What are we doing? Let's go dive. And I was just friends with these people. And every time I had a buyer prospect, I would just introduce them to my friends that already owned condos on Maui or houses. And when I left the island, I had probably 40 people in my backyard of my house. And 90% of the people at my going away party were my homeowners. Like, because it was, I had a small group of friends on Maui. I was there 3 years, but I had hundreds of homeowners, and like they flew in because they heard I was leaving, and they were in my backyard just hanging out with each other. So that to me is a really, really powerful way to build for your reputation to scale quickly throughout a community. Is when you're not there, you're not prospecting, you're not on the phones, they're still talking about you because of how you made them feel, something you did for them, somebody you connected them to. And I mean, you guys know, like when someone introduces you to a really special person that you really connect with, you never forget that, do you? So be that connector for your vendors, for your prospects, for your clients, and business just comes to you.
That's great. Well, we're it took a little bit longer on the round of questioning, but a lot of substance in that. Appreciate you guys. We have 8 minutes in case anybody has any questions. Do we have any hands raised, Chad?
Fed has a lot of experience in this space, and he has his hand up. Fed, go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to piggyback on what the three of you said, because obviously I saw a lot of, I mean, I agreed with all of it. I saw that with, I guess, newer agents, or just sometimes, you know, you'll have agents come in and say, hey, how do I break into the luxury, you know, because I don't feel like I can do this, or I don't feel like I can do that, and blah, blah, blah. I noticed that something super, super basic that often allows them to start changing and feeling like they can go into that world is, aside from, you know, knowing the market and the hot sheets, which is super important, something even more basic is, I notice that sometimes these agents, they don't go tour the luxury properties, and, you know, going to tour the luxury properties and seeing what it feels like to be in a 20, 30, $40 million property, whatever price point that is, it gets them to start feeling comfortable in that environment, and it gets them to just kind of relax a little bit. And when they feel relaxed, then you start giving them the ammunition of the hot sheets and knowing the markets and knowing the vendors and all that stuff. And it gets them to be able to go to a listing appointment and not look like a deer in headlights. It's something super basic, but I saw that shifted a lot of the people that were maybe, you know, going, they were saying, oh, I'm only selling $500,000 homes, but I want to break into the market where I'm selling $2, $3, $4 million homes. And I said, well, what have you seen? Oh, well, I never go to that part of town. Well, mistake number one, maybe move in there, move to that part of town. Or if you can't afford it yet, go to Brokers Open, whatever the day it is in your market, and go look at all the most expensive homes. And like Danielle and Tony were saying, on opening day, there is going to be the main listing agent. Go meet him. Hi, Tony, I'm so-and-so. Hi, Danielle, I'm so-and-so, you know, blah, blah, blah. And just constantly go to them. And then, as Danielle was saying, call them for off-market opportunities. So not only have they seen you, but now they see your name on their phone. And it's just basic little things that get them to shift.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And that's something I forgot to talk about. I've done that in every market that I've entered, Fed. Like, I'll get in as many homes as I can get into. If you're lucky enough to have an MLS that still does broker caravans, that was something every Monday morning in Maui. We would go tour like the biggest and the best houses that hit the market, and a lot of, you know, celebrity homes. I mean, these are, at that time, I mean, they were 20, 25, $30 million homes. And that to me was awesome because it gets you comfortable, just as I was saying, get comfortable with the demographic of people you're working with. You know, you need to get comfortable with the assets too. Like, if you don't know anything about, you know, a $1.5 million kitchen, you probably should hang out in one. And get access to the assets the same as you get access to the people, and you'll gain confidence. Good advice, Fed.
Yeah, appreciate that, Fed. By the way, guys, when Fed rattled off 20, 30, $40 million houses, that's a real thing where he lives. He's in LA. Like, that's not a casual thing we throw around in Orlando. So that said, guys, it looks like we're wrapping up. Do we have anybody else's hands up, Chad?
No, we're clear.
Okay. Hey, big thank you for, well, Chad's always on this, but great perspective, especially when it comes to psychology. Danielle and Tony, we so appreciate you coming on and making, I know you're crazy busy. You did this last minute and dropped everything. Thank you so much for that. We are going to take this recording, by the way, post it on our Facebook group again next week. I think we're going to dive into reputation management next week and talk about how you manage reviews and block and tackle the bad ones and so forth, or address them operationally. because everything hinges on that. I love what Tony said about, look, let me let my past clients do my selling for me. Just go look at what they said. And that's pretty much all anybody cares about anyway, right? So great tactic there. So again, thank you guys so much for coming on, Tony and Danielle.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle and Tony.
You're welcome. This was awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll be in touch. See you guys next week.